Welcome to this episode of the Grandcarers SA podcast. We have the pleasure in having Mike Feszczak with us on this episode to really provide an introduction into what Grandcarers SA is, what the vision is for the future, and what's been happening so far. And I would love to hand over to Mike. Mike, please introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of a backstory on where you've worked and volunteered in the past. I know you've done a number of things, and how long you've actually been at Grandcarers SA now.
Thanks, Sadie, and hello, everybody. My background, and before I start, I'd just like to acknowledge that we are recording this and that we meet across South Australia and across land that is belongs to the First Nations people, never ceded, always will be theirs, and that we recognise their elders, past, present, and emerging, and all the carers in our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities who have a history of care for centuries, never mind in recent years. So, thanks, Sadie. Grandcarers SA used to be called Grandparents for Grandchildren. I think that's probably how a lot of the people who are listening to this will remember it. It started 23 years ago, and it was a group of grandparents who were full-time carers of their children, grandchildren, and got together to try to support each other. And then gradually over the years, it built up, and we became a formally incorporated organisation, then registered as a charity. And in 2023, we rebranded as Grandcarers SA. So historically, 95% of our clients, and they are clients, they're not members, they're people that we try to support. 95% of our clients are grandparents. But we also have uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters, and we even have some non-related carers who are connected to us on our books, if you like, and seek support from us. And I'll talk about the supports in a minute. So we've currently got about 1,000 registered clients. We've just asked every client that was on our books if they're still looking after children and if they still want to be connected to us. And as a result of that, we identified that there were 300 people who didn't need our services anymore, and we're down to about 1,000. But that number is going to increase because we have weekly registration. So it's still a growing organisation despite that. My own personal background, I've talked a little bit about grandcarers. My own personal background is I'm an ex-cop, worked a lot in child protection, more as a investigator and prosecutor than in a supporter of the victims and the carers. But certainly connected to child protection issues throughout my career. And we emigrated to South Australia in 2005. And I'm a big believer in volunteering. I started off as a volunteer. I think volunteering is a stepping stone to the workplace, and that's what happened to me. I started volunteering for the Australian Masters Games, and then they offered me a job, and then they offered me another job, and a variety of different roles came down my way, including being the CEO, sorry, the state manager of a sporting disability organisation, the and working in a couple of local governments. Sorry, I'm tripping over myself there. Working in a couple of councils for a total of 12 years, managing large-scale volunteer programs. But also during all that time, I've been a consultant to the Office of Recreation and Sport, supporting small sports clubs and not-for-profit organisations and developing. And so so all those different roles naturally coincided when the role of CEO of Grandcarers SA came up, which I was fortunate enough to get 3.5 years ago. And it seems
God,
like 3.5 weeks
so
sometimes,
quickly.
and sometimes
Yeah.
it seems like 3,500 years, but that's the nature of the role. Um, so we're a small not-for-profit supporting primarily grandparent carers, as I said, but really one of the reasons I wanted to change the name was because I wanted us to be more inclusive. Apart from the fact that I was sick of typing grandparents to grandchildren because it's too long, I also wanted to send out a message that it wasn't just grandparents, it was also uncles and aunts and brothers and sisters and other people who we would welcome into it. And granny doesn't necessarily mean the same thing in every community, and I wanted to make us more inclusive. So that was the reason that I changed it. The feedback about being Grandcarers SA has been very positive, to the point that another organisation in WA that was also supporting grandparent carers changed their name to Grandcarers WA. So it's had an impact.
How
Um,
have you found that the rebranding has shifted some thought processes? I know that there has been some great grandparents as well in the past when
oh,
we've been
absolutely.
at a local council where it's the great grandparent that's had the child from literally the day it was born.
Yeah.
So how did that rebranding change maybe an identity, or did it actually expand the identity of what
I,
was in
I
terms of
think what it did was it set us up for the future. It
Mm,
identified that we were changing. Because we were changing. We've gone from a purely volunteer-run. The previous CEO was a volunteer. Everybody that was engaged in the organisation were volunteers. But we've had to step up a level to be able to provide the services that our clients need. And also to impress upon funders, including the government, about our seriousness, our professionalism. One of the things that we've done recently, and it probably won't mean anything to most people, but we've just been accredited under the Australian Service Excellence Standards. That's a huge tick for
that's
us
fantastic.
when we are looking for funding, when we are trying to demonstrate that we're serious about what we're doing. Not that we weren't serious before, but we're wanting just to take it up a level and grow the organisation. You know, we've grown the number of clients that we've got, of the active clients that we've got. We've grown the number of villages that we do. These are these peer support groups that we hold across the state. We've doubled the number of peer support groups. We've added other services like workshops and the big village, which was like our conference that we had a couple of years ago. And we're doing more activities for our clients. The thing that we're currently engaged in, this will time the interview, but we're currently engaged in our Great Christmas Giveaway. So that's where throughout the year, we collect and gather a wide variety of gifts so that the clients who can't afford to give the children Christmas gifts, we're able to give them a pack of gifts so that they can give those children gifts. And in a way, every year it's over 200 kids that get a big pack of gifts from us. And it makes a difference. And we know it makes a difference. And I know it makes a difference because of the feedback that we get. You know, the Christmas gifts, I lost count of the number of emails that I got from clients saying, I'm in tears while I'm wrapping these gifts. Thank you so much. So we
Yeah,
know we're making a difference. You
yeah.
know, the villages make a difference because they breach isolation. They get people the opportunity to share their challenges and maybe even find some solutions, but just providing a social outlet for them. You know, many of our clients have told me that the village is their respite. It's an hour and a half a month, but it's their respite and it's an
Mm.
opportunity to get out and meet other people. And
It's
then
the
we
social
also do,
connection as well, isn't it, Mike?
say
It's
that
the
again,
social
Sadie?
connection. Social connection is huge. And I think if you
Absolutely,
look at the
because they are
social
isolated.
determinants of health, yeah, you're looking
Yeah,
at emotional well-being,
yeah,
psychological well-being,
absolutely.
something
Yeah,
that's designed as a village. We were talking about it in one of the other episodes, which the listeners will get chance to hear, is that one of the carers was saying how much that social impact changes and shrinks within their own immediate familiarity, friends, families, the outer circle, but it also expands in a different way
yeah. I
through
mean,
villages and through.
some of the villages, the groups, they meet once a month. We put on a meeting room and some coffee, tea, biscuits, whatever it might be, and we do it once a month. Some of those groups are meeting in between because they've created those social connections, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these people are very isolated. I mean, we've got all our carers are wonderful people. They are putting themselves out to make sure that the children remain within the family and don't enter the child protection system and are in a safe place. I mean,
Mm.
how important is that to the children in our community and to the future of those families? So and of those children. So hugely important. And the fact that it's a fact that most of their peers are not looking after children, so they haven't got connection with their peers. You know, so our oldest client is 84. You talk about grandparents. Our oldest client's 84. and she's looking after two teenage kids.
Mm,
And when I tell people that, they go, "Can't believe that."
yeah.
But so it's the impact of our clients is huge, and I want the impact of Grandcarers SA to be huge on our clients, so that we can support them, whether that be through case management, whether that be through just general supports in terms of the social or guidance in terms of referrals to other agencies, or information about what they're entitled to and what they're not entitled to. Um, I want to make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability. And that's really important to me. That's one of the reasons I took the job, because I took the job because I want to make a difference.
I was
I'm in
on
a
that
stage of my
question.
life where, you
Why
know,
grandcarer? Well, back then it was a different name, but what stands from all of what you just said, it's just an amazing organization that without it, and I'm sure there are other little small organizations which you can allude to, but I think the 23 years and the 23 years in the future is certainly about that continuous evolution. Community changes, lived experiences stay similar. I know that some of the grandcarers that I've even spoken to are saying that their own lived experience and their own narrative of life has been able to allow them actually to share that with their grandchild, to say, mind your P's and Q's, there's manners, there's obligations, there's sometimes acceptance. And with the, I guess, the wise words of the grand carer, it really resonated to me through to me that there's that lived experience that as parents, sometimes you included, Mike and myself, we haven't had yet. Or we're
no.
learning as we go.
And it's interesting, as you sort of triggered a couple of things in my mind, and one of them is
Mm,
about the fact that they are the parents of the children. They are, they may not be called parents, and they know the children have got parents, but for the time that those children are with the carers, they are the parents, and that's a difficulty for them in terms of the fact that they can no longer be grandparents. And they lose, and there's some grief amongst that as well. They lose the ability to be grandparents to the children that are in their care. And
mm.
they have a difficulty, and I know I've heard many of them talk to me about this, where their other grandchildren come and visit, and they are the grandparents, and they can fill them with sugar and hand them back. But with the children that are in their care, they're the parents, and it's a very difficult balance for them to have. And also, you talk about other organizations. We cannot do what we are doing without partnerships with other organizations. I mentioned the Great Christmas Giveaway. We could not put that on without support from other organizations. Like we've got Backpack for Kids supporting us, the City of Victor Harbor Library, the Commonwealth Bank branch that have come in and helped to sort it out, because we can't do it all on our own. So it's a whole of community effort in many respects. Not only to care for the kids, but to care for the carers of the kids.
And I think it's also very holistic in terms of it. It's all of it. It's coming through to me actually that it is a community in itself with the nodes of those partnerships, those collaborations, funding when it can be there. But it really takes a village to bring all of this together.
Yeah.
What I'd like to just tap into, especially from the coaching head in me, is that grief and loss. Grief and loss isn't always about losing somebody
Yeah.
when they pass away, which is a huge connotation around grief and loss. Grief and loss can be the loss of an object. It can be loss of rhythm.
Yeah.
The feeling of grief. When we talk about grief in terms of a grandcarer world, how do you support the volunteers to support the grandcarer?
Yeah, great question.
That link.
Yeah, so the situation that many of the children have gone through, it can be traumatic, and that trauma is probably felt also by the carers.
Mm,
When the carers are working with our team, and most of them are volunteers, they get vicarious trauma. There is no doubt at all, or at least there's a danger that that they take on some vicarious trauma. So one of the things that we've introduced is it's like an employee assistance program, like most organisations should have, and we have a program where any of our team, volunteers, employees, or the board can access a qualified counsellor a number of times a year for free. And it's paid for by the organisation because we need to make sure that they're safe. We've also gone through a training process. So everybody's client facing has done mental health first aid training as an example. And we've since done a wellness session as well. And so and it's something that's always at the forefront of my mind that we've got to look after our people,
Yeah.
our team, because if we don't look after them, we ain't going to be able to provide the
There
service
is no
to them.
team.
So
There is
yeah,
no
so
Mike.
it's
And
very, very important. And
yeah,
we've
Mike.
also, but we've expanded that so that we've provided workshops across the state for the carers in about dealing with teens as an example, and all
Yeah.
the issues that the teens have got, and the mental health issues for the carers, and just personal wellness stuff as well. So we've tried to cascade that not only for our team but also to carers, and we'll be doing that again in 2026. We'll be looking at ways that we can support our carers through workshops as well as the villages, and the personal support through the telephone helpline, and the financial support through the Education Development Fund.
Yeah. Well, you've just actually linked straight into my next curiosity in terms of having shared a lot of those small wins along the way. And there's been a huge amount. I was trying to write some down then about all of the things that have even happened in the 3 years that you've been there,
Mm,
notwithstanding that a lot happened before that as well, but
mm,
it may have looked different.
mm.
What's the vision in your eyes as CEO? Also knowing that there is only one Mike, you've got a
Mm.
group of volunteers, you've got some admin staff, which I know are also volunteers. You've got the carers that are also hosting and helping co-design things within the villages. What's the vision? What's some of the small wins that you'd like to continue making into the next year or two?
Right. Great question.
Hmm.
Honest answer is I'd love us to not exist.
Yep. Yep.
Because
Actually,
I'd love us not to be needed. I'd love the powers that be to listen to this and understand what's going on, and understand the difficulties, and the fact that 50% of our clients are living below the poverty line,
mm,
that the vast majority are pensioners, 40% of them are single, older women, looking after children at a time of life when nobody expected them to be doing that. I'd love us not to exist, but the reality is we're probably going to be needed whatever happens,
yes.
so the vision for the organization is to part of my role, a large part of my role in the last couple of years, particularly, has been advocacy, and I
Mm,
suspect that we are going to, as an organization, uh, going to have to continue to advocate on behalf of our clients, whether that's to get them recognised under legislation or to get them funding. And at the moment, we've got submissions into the government seeking funding for informal grandparent carers, and also for greater funding for Grandcarers SA. And the reason for that is because I want to professionalize what we're doing even more than we already have done. We've been taking baby steps, but I need us to improve even more. Not necessarily improve, but be able to offer more. I think that's a better word, to be able to offer more. We've been very fortunate in recent months that we've had a social worker on secondment to us, a senior social worker, Sue. And one thing that she's done is she's raised the level of support that we're able to give as an organisation to clients. And what I'd love to move into is much more, rather than general information and advice, much more case management, much
yeah.
more personal support, which is much more hard hitting in terms of getting results and making improvements for our clients on an individual basis, rather than a group of 14, or the phone call where somebody rings and we say, "Oh, well, speak to Centrelink," or um, I don't know, whichever organisation or agency that we push them forward to. I mean, the social worker, Sue's a very experienced social worker, And the great thing about having Sue on board, and I've seen her do this, and I've also know other occasions where she's done it, where she's been able to sit and guide a client, and she sat with them for an hour
Yeah.
and longer, and been able to provide great guidance. And I've seen the clients lift as a result of that discussion, and that's what we need to do more. But we need to persuade government to support our informal carers, and
Mm.
and get them to recognise the injustice that formal carers who do exactly the same thing but have a legislative instrument governing them, formal carers and informal carers do exactly the same thing. They're keeping children out of the child protection and foster care systems, keeping the children in the family, and yet formal carers are getting paid. Some would argue not enough, and I'd probably support that, but at least they're getting something, whereas informal carers are getting nothing. And that advocacy will continue until until we've got them getting what we think they deserve.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate actually to have had some conversations with Sue, and she's on one of the episodes of the Grandcarers SA podcast, and she really did share the need to also support the carers themselves. So, if I posed a bit of from the left field, is that we've in the last 10 years gone through an aged care reform. We've had a new Aged Care Act come in November 2025. We've had a disability reform with the NDIS coming in.
Yeah.
With all of that, not that this podcast episode is to talk about all of that, but there is those other things happening as well. And how I want to correlate that together, Mike, is that with the aging of our grand carers, there are going to be services that they also need. So if we
Mm,
look at it in two ways, they're caring for their grandchild who
mm,
may have disabilities, neurodivergent, psychosocial, whatever's going on in their world is one part that I can see and hear.
mm.
And then there's the other part, and it's the well-being of the person that is aging while they are also caring.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of a vision there to support the carers in other ways when it comes to service delivery or service provision for them? Because it is as simple as 1-800 200 422 to my aged care. You
Yeah, and that's right.
yeah,
And I don't pretend that we're going to be experts in that area, but we need to understand where we can support people and how we can direct them to get those supports. But
yeah,
one of the things that I am looking at, and it sort of links into what you're talking about, is young carers, because I am convinced, and I know it happens because I've heard the evidence about it, but I'm convinced that we have a number of our clients who are reaching a stage of their life where the children that are in their care are actually carers, but probably not identified as carers. They might only be helping with some minor tasks initially, and then those minor tasks build up, but the children are becoming carers. And that's an area that I want to look at because we need to support them to be able to support their carers, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's an area that I'd like to explore. But again, we're an organisation of 3 employees with one social worker on secondment, and we don't know how long that's going to last. The rest of the people are volunteers, and we need resources to be able to do stuff like that effectively.
yeah.
And until we get that, until we properly funded and get those resources, then we have got to manage what we've got within our own limitations.
And I see this little pin in the center of the page where it's Grandcarers SA. And then there's an outer circle then of the volunteers, Mike
Yeah,
CEO, all of those incidental connections. And
yeah,
then outside, the health professional, the allied health, the referral base, the GPs, medical centers, it just goes bigger and bigger.
yeah.
And to go out through all of those, you come to the environment of where the grand carer is sitting. They
Mm,
have to navigate all of that
mm,
sometimes to work out what is going on. And I
mm,
think the great thing that I love about Grandcarers SA is the fact that there's different, not compartments, but there's different pillars. And I
mm,
really love hearing you say that you're expanding those pillars. There's sort of an information and advocacy pillar.
mm,
There's a support, personal development pillar.
mm,
There's the I'm hearing, listening, seeing you
mm,
pillar. There's
mm,
also the strategic planning and future planning. But there's also along all of that, the gold thread is vision awareness, being out there, being in front of the right people, having the right people around the room, and having that sort of board of directors that are seeing the vision as well, and everybody's walking, not behind, they're walking with you.
Mm.
And if there's a couple of things to wrap up the podcast episode of this introduction to the rest of the episodes, Mike, what's one of the key things for you in terms of maybe two things that you feel like you haven't achieved yet, but it's the yet? It will happen with a bit of power. What are a couple
Yeah,
of...
I've already referred to them really. I mean, one is to get us properly funded and supported, whether that be through government or philanthropic grants or whatever, because the finances are a day-to-day battle. But the other is to be able to provide professional supports to our clients and that case management, that personal support that we need to. The clients need it, without doubt. Our informal kinship carers do not have social workers assigned to them by the Department of Child Protection. The formal carers do, and that's where we need to go. And that's a key element. Getting us and the carers funded properly, because I should mention them, because if we get them funded properly, a lot of the battles are won. But we need to be able to provide them with a professional service that's much more personalised, much more about them and the children, and supports them working their way through the child protection system.
And I think that's a wonderful sort of space to end on, because what's just come up for me is the preventative health for future generations, preventing the health and well-being of the future generations of care recipients, as in the grandchild, and also those informal kinship and formal carers, because it's not going to stop tomorrow. Children will need caring for. I love the fact that what the mission is partly is about keeping them within their own family, if it's safe to do so. The safety and security of a child. We know that before 7, whatever they see, learn and behave like then is going to really be who they are. Now, they may want to change, but it takes effort and energy to do that. And I think with the support of Grandcarers SA, with what may sometimes feel like a busy week of not achieving anything, you've achieved so much. And I know that in the past you've shared some feedback that has come through anecdotally, but also qualitatively from surveys that you've done, and also just seeing people in the room at some of the events as well, speak louder than words. So I just really want to thank you, Mike, for sharing really raw and real objectives about the vision and future of Grandcarers SA. I think for me, I'm hearing that there's a really high importance in collaboration here in South Australia and beyond. I think the rebranding was fantastic. I remember hearing that Grandcarers WA had evolved. I think sometimes people get, it doesn't matter what the name is. I think in this respect, it did, because it broadened it. It sort of opened up the heartstrings to go, we can do more. However, we need the help to do it. So thank you so much indeed. I hope everybody enjoys listening to the other episodes. Is there one
Before
thing
you finish, I just want to say one thing, Sadie. Thank you. You're a volunteer. You're putting your own time and effort, and I know you've got a busy life. So you are, one of, those people who organisations like us rely on to get our tasks done. I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for Grandcarers SA as well.
It's actually, thank you. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to support you, bring this podcast to life. I hope there's another series in the future. And I think that the 5 that we've done, including obviously yours, has really touched on some heartstrings, for me included. As you know, I'm a health coach by trade, and I see so many groupings of people going through life, mainly women. And I know there's a lot of female carers, so that's very much something in terms of a direction that I would love to support grandcarers with into the future. But also the fact that there are the wider community out there. And what I find is that when we do the community workshop style in coaching, is that there are more people out there than what we know. They're not necessarily coming through the doors. And I think the visibility of organisations like this, we know that it's a pack. Please go and share. whatever knowledge you learn along the way. So thank you for that. And thank you for doing all of the things along with your staff and volunteers. And also the grandcarer that is listening to this, or the friend or loved one or significant other that is listening to it on behalf of the person that they're going to share it. Because I think that's what it is about as well, is necessarily somebody listening to a podcast and being in the depth of it and being the person that can say, I've got a friend who is this, they need to know more. So I know that we're going to share some links to some of the resources. I know that also the Grandcarers SA website is pretty much up to date.
Yeah.
And I think you've also still got your e-newsletter that people
Yeah, the
can
newsletter
subscribe
goes out
to.
every month, but the website's we've reviewed it twice. It's been rehashed, and we get really good responses about our website. So there's lots and lots of information on the website, www.grandcarers.au, grandcarers.au. Simple, go on it, have a look around.
Fantastic. Glad that you said it, not me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. And we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to the Grandcarers SA podcast.
Thanks, Sadie.